Thank you, everybody, for coming to the College Football Betting with Aaron Torres YouTube channel. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead, click that subscribe button. It helps our channel grow. It helps our audience grow. I appreciate it more than you know as we're talking college football on this channel year round. Appreciate your support. Click that subscribe button. Colorado hosting Baylor Saturday night on Fox. Colorado a 1.5 point favorite. The over-under in this one set at 51.5. Let's go ahead and dive in. Another, interesting week for Coach Prime. You get a great win. There was all the back and forth with Colorado State. Then Coach Prime has the conversation about reporters coming after his players too hard. Whatever. That's another conversation for another show. Let's focus on the game. Let's focus, by the way, on the product on the field the other day at Colorado. I think you could argue probably the most complete win of the Coach Prime era at Colorado. They go 4-8 last year, but if you watch those games, defense wasn't very good, run game wasn't very good. This was the closest thing that we've seen to a complete game from Colorado, and to me, it started with the run game against Colorado State. Listen, you could say it's quote-unquote only Colorado State, and maybe that's fair. I don't really care. This team was averaging like 30 yards per game on the ground coming into this one. They finished with 109 yards. They're certainly not Air Force or some triple option team or whatever. They're not putting up 300 yards on the ground, but 109 yards on the ground, 6 yards per carry. And listen, I thought it was very symbolic that they brought the O-line to the podium. Basically to say there's a lot of noise outside of here. There's a lot of blame going on the O-line. We believe in these guys. We like these guys. They get the win. But I think what the run game working really kind of showed me was also that, oh, by the way, we still got some things working in the pass game as well. And also, if we can run the football, it changes the entire trajectory of the pass game. Now, look, Shedor's been putting up great numbers regardless, but did you see how much more comfortable and how much more time he had in the pocket because the O-line was opening up running lanes? Shedor only got sacked once this past week against Colorado State. Again, I know it's Colorado State, but it was on the road, whatever. And so Shedor, because of it, finishes with 310 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. I still think this Colorado wide receiver core is as good as anybody in major college football. Maybe not Ohio State, maybe not Texas, but they're certainly in the short conversation. Travis Hunter, another 100 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Coach Prime said afterwards, maybe padding the stats a little bit late to kind of help the Heisman campaign. LeJonte Wester, a guy that I talked about a lot in the preseason, 80 yards, 5 catches, 2 touchdowns himself. I think he's the most underrated player on this team and in that receiver core. Will Shepard played well. He actually had a touchdown or a pass dropped for about a 20, 25-yard gain, still finishes 7 catches, 61 yards. And Jimmy Horn Jr., quote unquote, only had 4 catches, but he had a deep catch that actually was overturned that should not have been because of, I think it was a hold or something like that. But the offense is awesome. To the defense's credit, I don't know if it was because they were motivated about the stuff that was said in the summertime, but holds Colorado, listen, 340 yards. A lot of it was late. It is worth noting Colorado State did not put the ball in the end zone until the fourth quarter. The game was long over. And to Colorado's credit, forces 4 turnovers, forced 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions by Colorado. Travis Hunter had an interception where he basically tracked the ball better than the receiver did. Again, I cannot emphasize it enough. Just a great, great, great performance overall by Colorado. Baylor, on the other hand, is a very interesting team and a team that I think we're going to get to know a lot about this weekend, but they're interesting, especially in this matchup. Okay. So Baylor is 2-1, beat Tarleton State in week 1, beat Air Force last week in a game that was actually 6-3 at halftime. They pulled away, outscored them 25-0 after the break. But what's interesting about Baylor is this. They have a sort of unique quarterback situation that I actually think could maybe, as weird as it sounds, favor Colorado. Let me explain. So coming into the year, Baylor got a quarterback out of the portal named DeQuan Finn, okay? DeQuan Finn is a kid that was in the MAC last year. He was the MAC player of the year. He's a dual threat guy. By the way, I know Dave Aranda wore those shirts, we spend money or we pay players or whatever. Don't know if he got all of it, but certainly a very talented player a year ago in the MAC. 22 passing touchdowns in 2024 or 2023, excuse me, at Toledo. Also had another 7 rushing touchdowns as well. So 29 total touchdowns a year ago. Starts off playing pretty well for Baylor this year, but he got hurt going into week 3, excuse me. And Sawyer Robertson, the backup, actually played against Air Force and played really, really, really well. Now, the difference between Sawyer Robertson and DeQuan Finn, Sawyer Robertson is not a runner in any way, shape, or form, okay? 3 carries for 5 yards last week, but was 21 of 29 passing, 1 touchdown, 315 yards. And what's interesting about this is that Dave Aranda's kind of coy on who he thinks will be starting at quarterback. I think he's kind of hinted that both could play, but the Baylor fan base, they want they want Sawyer Robertson to start at quarterback. Why is that important to me? It's because I actually think that plays into the hands of Colorado. Listen, I've argued Colorado's defense, I think, is better than people give it credit for. Maybe Nebraska's just that good. But the one thing that they really struggled with against North Dakota State in week 1 was Cam Miller, the running quarterback, okay? By the way, a lot of teams struggle with running quarterbacks. This is one thing Nick Saban could never figure out. And the one thing Pete Carroll could never figure out at the college level, couldn't figure out Vince Young. By the way, not comparing Cam Miller to Vince Young, but you kind of get the point, I hope. Same time, once they bottled up Cam Miller, they ran away from North Dakota State. It wasn't close until the final quarter when they were quarter of a quarter when they played prevent defense against North Dakota State. But I bring it up because if you start DeQuan Finn at Baylor, I think that's a tougher matchup for Colorado. I think if you don't have that dual threat capability from the quarterback, I actually think it favors Colorado because I think they got some dudes on the defensive line that can really get after it. Deion Hayes was awesome the other day. Sam Okunlola, we've talked about all these guys. And so I just bring it up because I do think there is a fundamental advantage depending on what quarterback plays for Baylor in this game. Baylor, by the way, on defense, there's an interesting stat that I think is at least worth acknowledging. I don't know that it really matters all that much to me. Baylor actually has the number 1 pass defense in all of college football. So I know a lot of people would freak out and say, well, what does that mean? That they're going to shut down Shedeur? And it's like, well, they played Tarleton State, okay? They played Utah when Cam Rising got hurt, couldn't throw the football. So Utah wanted to run the ball. And then they played last week Air Force, a triple option team, which runs the ball as much as anybody. So I just bring it up because they have the quote unquote number 1 pass defense in college football. I wouldn't quite sit there and say it's the best pass defense in America, though. They quote unquote only have 2 interceptions, which is tied for 56th nationally. Cal, by the way, leads America with 9. So I could go on and on, but this is one I will not personally be betting as of right now, but I would sit back and wait and see if we get any clarification on the quarterback situation, because if you do, then it becomes very interesting. If Sawyer Robertson plays, I think that's huge advantage Colorado. I think otherwise it is maybe a little bit of an advantage to Baylor. But the other thing that I keep thinking, this line opened at Colorado -1.5. It has not moved. That to me is interesting. Remember last week, Colorado opened as a 7.5-point favorite at Colorado State, did not move all week. I thought it was interesting that Colorado, which obviously hadn't won a game in close to a calendar year, was a 7.5-point favorite. The line didn't move. This line has not moved it well. Colorado is back at home. It's a night game. I think Colorado potentially should win this game. I would wait for a quarterback clarification, but I do like Colorado to win and cover. But I do think it would be advantage Colorado if we get clarification on the quarterback.